Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in Numbers chapter 24, verse 1 through chapter 25, verse 18. So this is after Balaam goes up to Balak to, as part of being hired to curse Israel. And rather than cursing them twice, he blessed them. And so this is the third time here, after sacrificing bulls and rams and preparing, I think, 21 altars at this point. And so Numbers 24:1, when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he did not go as at the other times to seek for omens, but he set his face toward the wilderness. When Balaam lifted up his eyes, he saw Israel camped tribe by tribe, and the Spirit of God came upon him. Then he uttered this oracle. The oracle of Balaam, son of Beor, the oracle of the man whose eyes are open, the oracle of the one who hears the words of God, who sees a vision from the Almighty, although falling flat on the ground with eyes open. How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob, and your dwelling places, O Israel. They are like valleys stretched forth, like gardens by the river's side, like aloes that the Lord has planted, and like cedar trees beside the waters. He will pour the waters out of his buckets, and their descendants will be like abundant water. Their king will be greater than Agag, and their kingdom will be exalted. God brought them out of Egypt. They have, as it were, the strength of a young bull. They will devour hostile people, and will break their bones, and will pierce them through with arrows. They crouch and lie down like a lion, and as a lioness, who can stir him? Blessed is the one who blesses you, and cursed is the one who curses you. Then Balak became very angry at Balaam, and he struck his hands together. Balak said to Balaam, I called you to curse my enemies, and look, you have done nothing but bless them these 3 times. So now go back where you came from. I said that I would greatly honor you, but now the Lord has stood in the way of your honor. Balaam said to Balak, Did I not also tell your messengers whom you sent to me, if Balak would give me his palace full of silver and gold, I cannot go beyond the commandment of the Lord to do either good or evil of my own will, but whatever the Lord tells me I must speak? And now I am about to go back to my own people. Come now, and I will advise you as to what this people will do to your people in the future. Then he uttered this oracle, the oracle of Balaam, son of Beor, the oracle of the man whose eyes are open, the oracle of the one who hears the words of God, and who knows the knowledge of the Most High, who sees a vision from the Almighty, although falling flat on the ground with eyes open. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not close at hand. A star will march forth out of Jacob, and a scepter will rise out of Israel. He will crush the skulls of Moab, and the heads of all the sons of Sheth. Edom will be a possession, Seir, his enemies, will also be a possession, but Israel will act valiantly. A ruler will be established from Jacob. He will destroy the remains of the city. Then Balaam looked on Amalek and delivered this oracle. Amalek was the first of the nations, but his end will be that he will perish. Then he looked on the Kenites and uttered this oracle. Your dwelling place seems strong, and your nest is set on a rocky cliff. Nevertheless, the Kenite will be consumed. How long will Asher take you away captive? Then he uttered this oracle. Oh, who will survive when God does this? Ships will come from the coast of Kittim, and will afflict Asher, and will afflict Eber, and he will also perish forever. Balaam got up and departed, and returned to his home, and Balak also went his way. When Israel lived in Shittim, the people began to commit sexual immorality with the daughters of Moab. These women invited the people to the sacrifices of their gods. Then the people ate and bowed down to their gods. When Israel joined themselves to Baal Peor, the anger of the Lord flared up against Israel. The Lord said to Moses, Arrest all the leaders of the people, and hang them up before the Lord in broad daylight, so that the fierce anger of the Lord may be turned away from Israel. So Moses said to the judges of Israel, Each of you must execute those of his men who were joined to Baal Peor. Just then one of the Israelites came and brought to his brothers a Midianite woman in the plain view of Moses and the whole community of the Israelites, while they were weeping at the entrance of the tent of meeting. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he got up from among the assembly, took a javelin in his hand, and went after the Israelite man into the tent, and thrust through the Israelite man and into the woman's abdomen. So the plague was stopped from the Israelites. Those that died in the plague were 24,000. The Lord spoke to Moses, Phinehas, son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the priest, has turned my anger away from the Israelites, when he manifested such zeal for my sake among them, so that I did not consume the Israelites in my zeal. Therefore announce, I am going to give to him my covenant of peace. So it will be to him and his descendants after him a covenant of a permanent priesthood, because he has been zealous for his God and has made atonement for the Israelites. Now the name of the Israelite who was stabbed, the one who was stabbed with a Midianite woman, was Zimri, son of Salu, a leader of a clan of the Simeonites. The name of the Midianite woman who was killed was Cosbi, daughter of Zur. He was the leader over the people of a clan of Midian. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, bring trouble to the Midianites and destroy them, because they bring trouble to you by their treachery, with which they have deceived you in the matter of Peor, and in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of a prince of Midian, their sister, who was killed on the day of the plague that happened as a result of Peor. So Balaam here gives another oracle to Balak concerning Israel, blessing them, and also has prophecies concerning the surrounding nations here. Then you have this time when Israel's living, I guess, next to the Moabites. The Moabites are engaging in an assault of a kind. That is, they are using their daughters to entice the Israelites to worship gods other than God. And this has a good deal of success. And also, it's revealed later on that it's Balaam, actually, that has come up with this plan to induce Israel into sexual immorality and idolatry. And the idea is essentially that if God won't curse Israel, then if Moab leads them into sexual sin and idolatry, then God will curse them. It's hard to ascribe pure motives to anything Balaam does because this is the outcome of his actions. So, build for me here 7 altars, and prepare for me here 7 bulls and 7 rams. At the suggestion of Balaam, Balak offered 7 bulls and 7 rams. By now he had offered 21 bulls and rams, plus Balaam's pay. This means Balak had a substantial investment in seeing Israel cursed. This third time they selected another place to make the prophecy again. And I think this also shows that God doesn't work like we want him to work. That is, it's not like a transactional thing of, oh, God, if I just give you these things, this service, these 21 bulls and rams here, then you'll do what I want, which was a common conception as to how the pagan gods work, because it emulates how this world works, essentially, in that, oh, I provide you this good and you provide me something in return. But that's not how God works, because everything belongs to God. So what can we offer God that isn't already his? It's the wrong way to go about it if we think that we can offer God anything, and that if we just do these things, then we can please God. No, all we can do is fall on the mercy of God. He did not go, as at other times, to seek to use sorcery. Apparently, on the 2 previous occasions, Balaam tried to bring forth a curse on Israel, but he couldn't. Now he stopped using these false and artificial aids and just let the Lord speak to him. Interesting. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob! This beautiful prophecy speaks of Israel's blessed abundance and the dominance over neighboring nations God will give Israel. Most of all, it speaks of the abiding blessing of God on Israel, and directly rebukes Balak for trying to curse Israel. Cursed is he who curses you. Blessed is he who blesses you. Each of the first 3 prophecies, it has gotten worse for Balak. In the first one, Balaam fails to curse Israel. In the second, he blesses Israel. And in the third, he curses Balak. How much worse can it get for the king of Moab? And Balak says in response, I would greatly honor you, but in fact the Lord has kept you back from honor. Balak said that he would not pay Balaam because Balaam would not curse Israel. This hit Balaam where it really hurt him. The Lord says that I must speak. Balaam tried his best to excuse himself and to blame God, but he knew that his heart's desire, a big paycheck, would not be fulfilled because he failed to please his employer. Perhaps at that moment Balaam saw the greater wisdom of God in telling him not to go, because it now seemed that the whole trip was a big waste and Balaam would not get his money. And now indeed I'm going to my people. There was no preparation needed for this prophecy. Since Balak was not going to pay Balaam, Balaam would get back at him with a free prophecy, one that would show just how blessed Israel would be, both now and in the later days. I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, a scepter shall rise out of Israel. This passage is a beautiful prophecy of the coming Messiah. Balaam could see him, but not now. Jesus is here prophetically called a star and a scepter. He is glorious like a star and has all authority to rule, as pictured by a scepter. And batter the brow of Moab, and destroy all the sons of tumult. The Messiah will eventually rule over all nations that surround Israel. Here God spoke about the neighboring nations of Israel, Moab, Edom, Amalek, and the Kenites, and their future through Balaam. So Balaam rose and departed. Undoubtedly, both were disappointed and perhaps angry, each because Israel had not been weakened spiritually and therefore made ready for defeat in battle. Balak wanted Israel defeated, and Balaam wanted Balak's money, but each wanted Israel spiritually cursed as a way to get it, and God would not curse Israel. And Balak also went his way. We must credit Balak for one thing. He knew where the strength of Israel was. He did not seek to defeat Israel through military strategy, or new weapons. He knew it was a spiritual battle, and if Israel won the spiritual battle, they would certainly win the military battle. We should walk in the same awareness. If we did, we would give more time and attention to building our spiritual strength and having a close walk with Jesus. We should not allow Balak to be more perceptive about spiritual things than we are. Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. And I think Balaam here was still after a paycheck because he comes up with this plan for sexual immorality and idolatry. And the people began to commit harlotry with the women of Moab. The women of Moab, coming among the men of Israel, seduced them to both sexual sin and idolatry. The two were commonly connected in perverse forms of idol worship in the ancient world. In this chapter, the women and their people are sometimes described as Midianites and sometimes as Moabites. This is because the Midianites were a nomadic group, and at this time were in high numbers among the Moabites. Israel was joined to Baal of Peor. Baal was the great Canaanite fertility god, and the worship of Baal was a constant enticement for the children of Israel. Balaam prophesied from the high places of Baal, possibly from this same place, Baal of Peor. And the anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel. Balak could never pay enough money to Balaam to make God curse Israel. In the previous chapter, Balaam tried to curse Israel and could not, but now they are cursed because of their sin against the Lord. We learn later in the chapter that the anger of the Lord showed itself in a plague that began to strike down thousands among Israel and seemed as if it would continue until the whole nation was consumed. What an enemy could never accomplish against Israel, Israel did to itself through disobedience. The same principle works among the people of God today. The mightiest attack of Satan against us can never do as much damage as our own sin and rebellion against the Lord. The sword of no stranger, the curse of no stranger, had the power to damage Israel. Only it itself could bring misfortune by ceding from God and his law. The Moabites, being now neighbors to the Israelites, and finding themselves unable to effect their design against Israel by war and witchcraft, now felt another way to work. The anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel. Balaam had done his best to curse Israel, but was unsuccessful. Yet his love for money wouldn't let the matter end without pleasing the man who hired him, the king of Moab. 2 Peter 2:15 and 16 speaks of Balaam and his love of money, using him as an example of later false prophets. They have forsaken the right way and gone astray, following the way of Balaam the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. But he was rebuked for his iniquity. A dumb donkey, speaking with a man's voice, restrained the madness of the prophet. Revelation 2:14 makes the connection between Balaam's unsuccessful attempt to curse Israel and this subsequent idolatry. But I have a few things against you, because you have there those who hold the doctrine of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat things sacrificed to idols, and to commit sexual immorality. Essentially, after his failure to curse Israel, Balaam said to Balak, "I cannot curse this people, but you can get them to curse themselves through enticing them to rebel against their God. Send your prettiest girls among them, and tell them to entice the men of Israel to immorality and idolatry." And it worked. Balaam, through his wicked counsel to Balak, got what he wanted, but he also ended up dead among the enemies of God. In Numbers 31:7 and 8, it says, "After they warred against the Midianites, as the Lord commanded Moses, and they slew all the males. And they slew the kings of Midian, besides the rest of them that were slain, namely Evi, and Rechem, and Zur, and Hur, and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam also, the son of Beor, they slew with the sword." So he only enjoyed his money for a short time. Yeah. And it's good to remember that ultimately we can gain the whole world here. But how much time do we have to enjoy it? And ultimately, the pleasures of this world fade away. Better to get right with God. "Every one of you kill his men who are joined to Baal of Peor." When sin such as this is tolerated or even approved in a culture, it is a sure sign of decay, and Moses wouldn't accept that decay. He commanded the community to bring the offenders to be judged, to show they would not accept this kind of sin in their midst. Now when Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the priest, saw it, he rose among the congregation. Phinehas was one among those in Israel who would not accept this wholesale rebellion against God. He brought God's judgment by thrusting through an Israelite man and a Midianite woman with a spear, seemingly as they were in the midst of immorality. Allen believes this man was having sex with the Midianite woman right in front of the tabernacle, and the text deliberately obscures this because it is so offensive. It would certainly seem, if you were being pierced through by a spear, and the spear goes through too, that the two were intimately close. But yeah, I think part of this too that's important is that we should also be wary of the smiles of this world as much as the scorn of it, in that we can often be led astray by temporary pleasures. From Matthew Henry here. that Balak, by the advice of Balaam, cast the stumbling block before the children of Israel. Note, those are our worst enemies that draw us to sin, for this is the greatest mischief any man can do to us. If Balak had drawn out his armed men against them to fight them, Israel would have bravely resisted, and no doubt had been more than conquerors. But now that he sends his beautiful women among them and invites them to his idolatrous feasts, the Israelites basely yield and are shamefully overcome. Those are smitten with these harlots that could not be smitten with his sword. Note, we are more endangered by the charms of a smiling world than by the terrors of a frowning world. Yeah, so we should definitely be on our guard as far as that goes. So the plague was stopped among the children of Israel. Phinehas was probably not the only one to make such a stand for righteousness, but his was the singular act that stopped the plague. We may think our particular stand for righteousness makes no difference in the awesome tide of sin around us, but God can honor just one righteous act and cause it to make the difference. Yeah. So we should never think that it's hopeless when we stand against sin, because our stand could turn the tide. Yeah, and I guess thinking a bit more previously about the man and the woman here who were killed, it was common practice among the pagans to have ritual sexual practice included as part of pagan religious ritual. And yeah, so it's possible that it wasn't an act of protest so much as a worshipful thing that this man and woman were doing. And yeah, that's not how God wants to be approached. "24,000. This many died in the plague. This must have delighted Balak, king of Moab. He knew that Balaam succeeded in cursing Israel, or rather, in getting them to curse themselves. Concerning Phinehas, because he was zealous with my zeal among them, so that I did not consume the children of Israel in my zeal. It wasn't only Phinehas' obedience God noticed. He was also noticed because he was zealous with my zeal among them. Phinehas was passionate about the things God was passionate about, and in this respect he was a man after God's own heart. It shall be to him and his descendants after him a covenant of an everlasting priesthood. God blessed Phinehas with the promise that he would be the descendant of Aaron, through which the priesthood passed. This was fitting because it was the zeal of Phinehas that made atonement for the children of Israel, just as a priest should be the one ministering atonement." Yeah. And in response to all this, harass the Midianites and attack them, for they harassed you with their schemes, by which they seduced you in the matter of Peor. They were to show no tolerance towards that which brought the sin in their midst, and turn their hearts away from God. They were to battle against the Midianites every opportunity that they had. Yeah. And I think it's important, too, that we show the same zeal in removing sin from our lives, not tolerating it and not giving it a neighboring place in our lives, but doing away with it, showing zeal for the Lord and for the things that he loves, and despising the things which he despises, and not giving this stronghold in our lives towards sin. If our attitude is, how much can we get away with and still please God, then our attitude isn't pleasing God. We should be zealous in trying to please God and not holding any place in our lives for sin. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a good day.